Terry McBride.
Okay. I am so excited to have Terry with us this morning. It's just a wonderful thing having this technology of Zoom. So Terry, we are anxious to hear your message, and welcome everyone. Terry McBride.
Thanks, Irene. It's a delight to be with you folks again. And it's especially wonderful at this time for me because it's a challenging time. I wish I was there with you in form, because one of the things that your center has, and it's quite unique, is how much love there is and how you share that every morning, or on Sundays. And I miss Irene picking me up at the airport, and her smile and enthusiasm for having me there. So as we move this morning, understand this is my first time live streaming. So if I make a mistake, forgive me that, cut me a little slack. I don't know about you, but this is a scary time for me. And I don't do scary. I don't do fear. I did my fear. I did my 11 years of having that infection in my spine, which I have talked about. There were like 247 nights in the hospital alone, waiting for the surgery that possibly would leave me with a body that was broken for all time. And so I understand fear. I also understand how to get through fear to the other side. I know who I am. I'm a spiritual being. I understand my power and authority on this physical plane. And I still find myself at times lost, confused. The other night I was talking with Ray, and Ray sends her love. I went out and I was in my office. I was doing some work, and I just got sort of overwhelmed with a feeling of sadness. And I went in and was sharing with her about the sadness that I was feeling in our lives' work. I mean, I'm, mostly retired. Just because I don't get to go out much, it doesn't bother me. Ray works part-time, but she's doing it at home. We have all of our needs being met, and yet I had this sadness within me. And as we talked with each other, what I began to realize is this sadness was my experience of all the people in the world and the suffering that was going on. I was connected with them. And Ray told me, she says, that's one of the things about your empathy. You are so in tune with what's going on that sometimes that is a detriment. And so as I have looked at this time and what's going on, there are times where I get confused. For 50 years, I have told people, I've talked to people, I have inspired people to understand their own divine magnificence. And from that magnificence, to step into their life with authority and power to make your dreams come true, no matter what the odds, no matter what society is saying about you can't expect that. You have the right to say, like my book, the hell I can't, and step forth boldly. And yet at this time, I find, not all the time, I'm not saying I'm on the brink of depression and thinking about ending it all. I just find that what's going on today reminds me of a time in my past when I didn't know what to do. You see, with this virus, there is a dynamic that we're not used to. Now, I'm not trying to tell you this is the way it is. I'm just sharing with you what's going on with me. And I invite you, I encourage you to get underneath the examples I use and see if there's any piece of information that you can use to improve the quality of your life. The brain uses past information as a framework for how it perceives what's going on in our now and how to deal with it. And as one grows and is exposed to various ideas, their successes, their failures, the brain puts all of this together in a framework for how it's going to deal with life. Today, many professionals in the mental health industry are saying that the circumstances surrounding the pandemic are unique, in that most of us have no frame of reference for how to respond. These professionals say that other disasters are better defined. Many times they're clearly visible, and most of these other disasters have beginnings and endings. But this pandemic is more difficult to judge because and even if you believe that it's being overhyped, this pandemic is difficult for us to get our minds around because we have no frame of reference. The experts are saying feelings intermittently or constantly of being on edge or worried or fearful, or any of the other feelings that you may have regarding what's going on in your life because of this global health challenge, all of those feelings are normal. It's part of the flight or fight reactions that are automatic and part of being a human being. So in summary, you are not going crazy. In summary, I am not going crazy. We are simply trying to cope with a new reality, whether we're sick or not. So what I would say is, in summary, it's okay to feel not okay. And sometimes in metaphysics, that is heresy. We're supposed to look to the good and praise it, always be positive. You know, I have a bumper sticker on my car that says, think good thoughts. And so it's almost heresy to say it's okay to feel not okay. But that's what I want to talk about this morning. There are wonderful free videos on various internet platforms, meditations, guided meditations, yoga exercises, many free things that you can do to get centered or to get back closer to your center. What I'm talking about today is that you may not be able to get there. I'm not saying all of you. I'm just saying if you can't get to a place of peace, if you can't get to a place of confidence, I want you to know it's okay to feel not okay. I mentioned earlier that this pandemic has set up a response that I could feel within me that I haven't experienced for almost 50 years. You see, when I was first sick with this infection in my spine, when I was first studying the tools, I did not start with what I needed to do to get well. I was so overwhelmed with the daily challenges of dealing with this infection, irrigating my colostomy because I went to the bathroom in a plastic bag, dealing with the various medical doctors because I was in a teaching hospital. I had more doctors than you can count on both hands, dealing with their negative prognosis about severe permanent disability. I was so overwhelmed with these daily challenges that I could not begin to believe that I could do anything positive and have an effect. I couldn't believe it. And so what I'm comparing this pandemic to, I'm not saying that what I went through is the same as what people are going through today. I'm just saying that when I realized how part of me was approaching this pandemic, I recognized that part of me felt that same thing back those many years ago when I was in my early 20s, when I thought there is nothing I can do. I am out of control. This is beyond anything that I have any say about. In other words, I was so, as I said, I was so overwhelmed with the daily challenges of dealing with the infection in my spine and the negative prognosis that I could not get to anywhere else other than my overwhelm. This is what many professionals today in the mental health industry are saying. The circumstances surrounding this pandemic are unique, and most of us have no framework or reference for how to respond. I submit that many of us here today are in that similar position. There are so many uncertainties in this pandemic. There are different studies, there are different projections, the possibility of devastating consequences to our individual and shared well-beings, that perhaps the best that many of us can consider right now is, how do I use these tools that I know about to keep the negatives within tolerable limits? I'm not talking about changing the negatives to a positive, looking to the good and praising it. That is certainly some of the tools we can use at certain times. But when somebody is completely overwhelmed, one of the things that I do as a coach is to assist them to understand this overwhelm is natural. And perhaps we will use the tools to keep these negatives within tolerable limits. In other words, to develop a mental environment that will allow you to start right where you are now, and at the same time nudge you into an acceptance of movement through this situation, an acceptance of the possibility of movement through this situation. In my book, I talk about that when this was going on for me. I was reading the books about the choice of destination, choice of action, affirmations, visualizations, the power of imaging and all of that. But I was so overwhelmed with the negatives, I couldn't really grab those to start to move towards health. So what I created was what I called a statement of being. And what the statement of being was about was to develop an overall framework which would allow my fear and doubt and anxiety to exist, and at the same time not allow me to become overwhelmed, but nudge me towards the possibility of regaining my health, or the possibility of taking charge of some of the aspects of my life. When I wrote what I called my statement of being, it was different than affirmations. I was using affirmations. Going into surgery, I would do an affirmation. The doctors are going to be in a really good mood today. They're going to be excited about working with me. They're going to be careful not to do any nerve damage. I do affirmations about when I come out of the anesthetic today, I'm going to do that easily, and I'm not going to experience any nausea. So I used affirmations like that on specifics, but my statement of being was more of an overall statement about my consciousness. First, in this statement, I wrote out, what do I want this to accomplish? First, I wanted to reinforce the idea that I wasn't alone, that God was with me, supporting me. It was part of the commitment quote that I believed in when it says, when one commits, then providence moves too. I wanted to believe that providence, God, this holy aspect, was working with me on my priorities. Second, I wanted to feel this all-powerful presence and begin to acknowledge how it was supporting me. I didn't want to just think about it in the abstract that I am one with God. I wanted to begin to acknowledge on a daily basis when I realized the support I was getting from this divine presence. And third, I wanted to bring some peace in me not knowing what I needed to do. because I was confused. Like in metaphysics, I mentioned earlier, we as metaphysicians are supposed to know what to do. Well, this was back early in my 20s. I wanted to find some peace in not knowing. So what I invite you to do is begin to develop a statement of being, a statement that you can repeat over and over and over throughout your day that allows you to begin to be okay with where you are, even if you're not being okay. This is what my statement of being and how it worked. This is what it said. As I move into this time of creation, I feel the power of something bigger than me moving with me and supporting and empowering me. You see how that statement covers the first part. I wanted to begin to feel that God was on my side. The second sentence in my statement of being was, I know all things are possible. I was trying to believe that. I was reading the books that said you don't have to believe in limitation and lack. So the second sentence started with, I know that all things are possible. And as I explore how I am going to create the healing I desire, as I explore, as I get involved in this journey, it wasn't saying I am healthy now, because I wasn't. I was laying in the hospital with tubes and holes and all kinds of stuff. As I explore how I'm going to create the healing I desire, I will notice the support and acknowledge it. That's that second piece. I wanted to begin to see and experience on a daily basis that God really was with me. The third sentence was the one about I wanted to be okay in not knowing what to do. The third sentence, I know that I do not have to figure this out all at once. I know that I do not need to figure this out all at once. All I have to do is begin right where I am and consciously choose to move toward what I want. And then the summary. My life is not one problem after another. It is right now a time of discovery and creation, and out of my own being, I'm beginning to feel the joy and freedom that comes with knowing I can create reality. What I'm suggesting is that in this time, for many of us as practicing metaphysicians, is that we are finding ourselves in fear or in confusion or in doubt. And part of us wants to get out of that, to feel secure. And what the experts are saying is it's difficult at this point in this pandemic to feel secure. You might want to begin to look at how do you support yourself in being exactly where you are, in the not knowing. How do you support yourself in a positive way while you're in the middle of fear? How do you support yourself in a positive way when part of you is confused and overwhelmed? You create a mental environment where all of that can be the way it is right now, but it does not declare that's how it's going to be forever. These are, again, the ways that we can use the tools of choice to begin to create the reality that we want. The key here is for you to begin to develop a statement that is what I call mostly true. It's what I call a believable hope. Rather than starting with, I am calm and peaceful and powerful and I know the truth, you may not be able to hold that with this specific challenge. You may want to start with, even as I am confused, I feel the power of. Even as I notice my fear and anxiety, I am also aware that there is. So it allows what's going on in your mind at this time to be there. And at the same time, it encourages you to know another truth, that the truth that you are unlimited, the truth that we will get through this. It's a challenging time. I want you to know what an honor it was for me to participate with you. Because for days, for weeks, I got to think about what is going on with me. How would I talk about what's going on with me? How would I use these tools and teach these tools of creating reality in a time when people are so overwhelmed and confused, they're not even sure of anything anymore. That kind of thing. What being with you forced me to get on paper, to think about it, to write about it. I acknowledge you for that. I acknowledge you for allowing me to be part of your spiritual family. I feel like that with you. I invite you to close your eyes. Allow my words and my intention to give you hope. You are not alone. Your spiritual family is praying for you. We are sending you love and peace. You're not alone. You're not alone. People all over the world are praying for you. They are sending you healing energy and peace. You're not alone. You are not alone. The infinite presence and power of God is who you are. Take a moment now. Be open to feel this infinite presence and power. Just feel it. It's the truth of who you are. Take a moment and feel this power. You are not alone. For just a moment, allow your mind to move you past any doubt. Allow your mind to move you past any fear. And allow your mind to assist you to feel the love and peace of belonging here with your spiritual family. You are not alone. You are not alone.